Hi everybody, I'm Ryan, and today in our yoga practice we're going to focus on two things, the side body and the core. So for the side body, we're going to get some strength work as part of that core focus. We're also going to get some really good stretches for the side body. If you want to use any props during this practice, you can go ahead and find those. I've got a blanket, folded up blanket that I'm sitting on, and a yoga block. I would recommend having a yoga block or something like it for today's practice. If you don't have an actual yoga block, you could use a pillow or something like that, or a folded up towel or blanket to kind of approximate that 3-inch thickness, or give or take. We're going to use that for some of our core strength work. So once you've got all your props, you can come back to your mat and we'll get started. All right, so we're actually going to start today's practice in reclined position to kind of wake up the core a little bit. So find that block or other similar prop, bring that with you as you come to reclined. So we're just going to set up as we would for a bridge pose with our soles of the feet on the mat, our knees bent, and let's just take a few breaths here. Pausing for a moment just to tune into your body, notice what you're feeling right now, to notice your breath. Bring your attention to your rib cage for just a second, and if it helps, you can even bring your hands, kind of wrap them around, thumbs around the back and fingers around the front of the rib cage. And we're going to take 3 deep breaths, focusing on expanding out into the rib cage, the front, and really the sides expanding out, and maybe even a little bit of expansion back into the thumbs if you've got them there. So 2 more of those big deep breaths. So this last breath you take, see if you can squeeze out not all the air, but most of the air that's in your lungs. So really squeezing to get that last little bit of air out. And then just letting your breath come back to normal. In and out through the nose. And you can release the hands back down beside the body. Go ahead and find your block or other prop. We're going to bring that in between the knees. So in between the thighs, just above the knee. Go ahead and bring your hands behind your head. Take a breath in. As you exhale, lift the feet and lift the head. So just noticing here how we're holding this position up off the mat. So we want to keep our neck long. We don't want to tuck the chin toward the chest too much. And let's inhale to come back down. Let's just do that simple crunch movement a couple more times. So breathing out, back of the head lifts, feet lift. And inhale to release. You can do this at your pace too. It doesn't have to be exactly the same pace as I'm doing. But on your exhalation, we're lifting back up. This time I want you to think about the core a little bit more. So think about front of the body drawing down toward your mat, or alternatively front of the body drawing in toward the spine. So we're kind of scooping in here. Okay, and inhaling to release down. All right, we're just going to build on that a little bit. So again, exhaling, front body draws in toward the spine, head and feet lift. This time we're just going to extend our right leg out, and I'm mirroring, so I'm actually doing my left, but you guys can do your right. So straightening that knee. And let's stay lifted. Breathe in, and then exhale, extend left knee. Inhale, and you can either release the head and the feet or just the head. If you want to just keep the feet lifted, you can do that in between rounds. All right, so we're going to do that again. Exhaling, front body draws in toward the spine, head and shoulders lift, neck stays long. We're going to extend, straighten that right knee. This time we're going to reach that left arm across toward the outside of the knee. Keep the front body scooped in. Inhale back to center, release down if you need to. On your exhale, left knee straightens. And we reach that right arm toward the outside. Inhale, release down. Again, you can release the head down. You can release the feet down if you want to, or you can keep them lifted. All right, so again, we're gonna exhale, lift the head and shoulders, front body scoops in, extend both knees this time, lightly squeeze the block. Your knees don't have to be completely straight. You can have a little bend, but think about soles of the feet reaching up toward the ceiling. And we're gonna stay in this position and add a little movement. So think about your tailbone, the base of your spine. Think about turning it to face toward the right a little bit. So we're getting a little bit of a twist. We should feel those right side oblique muscles turning on a little bit. Inhale back to center. Exhale, same thing, other side. So just kind of rotating, turning the pelvis. So think about tailbone pointing out toward the left a little bit. Inhale back to center, release down. And let's take a couple breaths here. I don't know about you guys doing this at home, but I needed an extra breath to reset after that last one. We're gonna do that exact same thing one more time. So when you're ready, exhale, lift the back of the head, keep the neck long, lift the feet, scoop the front body in as you extend both legs, lightly squeeze the block. And again, staying centered in the shoulders, but start to find that little pivot, that little turn in the pelvis. Tailbone is kind of angled out toward the right. Inhale through center, front body stays scooped in. Turn tailbone toward the left. Hold here for 3, 2, 1. Back to center, release down. Remove the block and just breathe here for a second. You can find any position for the legs that feels good. It might feel good to let the knees open up into butterfly, bound ankle pose. Or might feel good just to kind of walk the feet out to the edges of the mat, let the knees fall in, kind of the opposite movement. Let's take 3 more breaths here, come back to that rib cage breathing that we started with. So as you finish that 3rd breath, you can start to make your way over onto your side and from there up to seated. And anytime we're in a seated position, you can always sit on something. I'm going to use my folded up blanket. So just finding an easy seated position, cross-legged or kneeling, either one will work for these next few poses. Sitting up tall, length from the base of your spine all the way up to the crown of your head. Another deep breath. With our next inhalation, we're going to lift just the left arm up, reaching up. Think about opening up that space between the bottom rib and the top of the hip on your left. We're going to take that right hand out to the side, plant it, and then start to reach overhead with that left arm for a side body stretch. Anytime we do this pose, you can find what works for you. So more specifically with that right hand, you can either slide it out for a deeper stretch, or you can bend that elbow to get a little more stretch. We also want to think about, with these side body stretches, keeping that left shoulder back. There's a tendency is to try to reach, and then we start to turn toward the ground. We don't want to do that because that shifts where we're putting the stretch, away from where, at least for today, where we want to have it. So keeping that left shoulder reaching back behind, shoulder blade, I should say. All right, let's go ahead and come back to center as we breathe in. Same thing, other side. Left hand floats down, right arm reaches up. We keep the chest square to the front. That's another way to think about not letting that right shoulder drop, is just keeping the shoulders and the chest square toward the front of your mat. And we'll inhale back to center. Keep that right arm lifted. Lift the left arm as well as you breathe in. And as we breathe out, we're just going to find a simple twist to the right. Hands float down. Right hand comes behind and left arm floats down. Left hand can find your knee if that feels good. Really tall through the spine. And just finding a twist that moves along the whole length of your spine. Slowly as we inhale, we'll come back to center, reaching up. Exhaling, hands float down to the left for your twist. Couple breaths here. Next inhalation, back to center one more time, reaching up. Big breath in. Exhale, float the hands all the way down. We're going to come over to tabletop position next, hands and knees. And depending on if you're on a hard floor, you might want to use that folded up towel or blanket to put it under your knees. We're also going to use our block again in a moment, so have that nearby where you can reach it. So find your knees stacked under your hips, wrist under shoulders, palms or knuckles on the mat. Check in with your alignment to start here. So think about shoulders drawing down away from the ears. Think about back of the neck being lifted. Take a big breath. And we'll start with a few rounds of cat and cow. So as you're breathing out, round through your spine. Let the chin move toward the chest, let the tailbone tuck under and push away from the ground. As you inhale, reverse that movement, cow pose, extending the spine, arching up. Just continue to move with your breath for the next few moments. And just really tune into what you're feeling in the spine, the back of the body. Might even explore how well you can articulate your spine. So maybe you let the tailbone lift first when you're coming out of that cat and kind of roll that wave up your spine to move into cow. And you can do the same thing as you're going back to cat. You can tuck the tailbone first and kind of let that wave roll up the spine as you round through each segment of the spine. Let's do that a couple more times. All right, we can start to find our way back to center. So again, finding that strong position, flat back, shoulders drawing down, back of the neck lifted. Let's go ahead and find that block. Put it kind of where we had it before when we were in reclined position, so in between the thighs, right above the knees. So from here, we're going to move into a plank position. So just extending the feet back. Might have to kind of tiptoe and walk them back to keep that block there. And then walking the knees back in under the hips. Let's do that a couple more times. So just kind of tiptoeing the feet back, walking the knees back in. Keeping everything really stable, really solid here. Shoulders and head shouldn't really move. And knees back in. Rest here for a breath. And we're going to come back to that plank position. And you have options here. If the wrists are starting to bother you, you can come down to your forearms. Might make it a little trickier when you're coming back to knees, but you can do that. Or if you've got something you can grab, like a dumbbell or push-up handles, those can be really helpful here. So finding your way back to that plank position, we're going to hold this time and add in some movement. So dropping the hips over toward the right a little bit, through center and over toward the left. So we're just kind of pivoting. Again, head and shoulders stay stable, and we just kind of rotate the pelvis, so we should really be feeling the side body, the oblique muscles lighting up here. We'll do this a few more times. One more time to that left side. Back to center. Release the knees down. You can remove your block. Let's come to child's pose for a few breaths. So just breathing out, sending the hips toward the heels, and releasing all the way down. Let's take one more breath here. Slowly inhale to come back up to hands and knees. Find that strong position, flat back, shoulders drawing down, long back of the neck. And this time as we exhale, we're going to lift the knees, lift the hips, and shift back for downward facing dog. Feel free to find a little movement. Taking a few seconds here in down dog just to check in with the body, notice what you feel. As you inhale, and start to walk your feet towards your hands, coming to forward fold. Again, just pausing here in your forward fold to check in. And just a couple reminders for forward fold. It's not about keeping your knees straight. It's not about getting a hamstring stretch necessarily. In general, for poses, we want to think about the spine first and then everything else after. So if you feel like you're really rounded in your low back here, let your knees bend. Maybe even lift a little bit if you need to. One more breath. Start to root into your feet, and as you inhale, come all the way up to standing. As you come up, lift the heart, lift the hands reaching up. Bring your palms together. Exhale, hands down to the heart. Take a deep breath. And with your next inhale, reach up again. Exhale, slowly forward fold, hinging at the hips. So reaching back with the sit bones and coming all the way down. From here, bend the knees, plant the hands. Let's step just the right foot back. Low lunge. And let that right knee come down to the mat. Setting up for Anjaneyasana, so knee and foot hip distance apart. And when you're ready, come upright, inhaling arms up. Couple deep breaths. So while we're here in Anjaneyasana, we're going to add in a side body stretch. If you're feeling a lot of tension in that right leg or the right hip, find a little bit more ease there. Back up a little bit with the hips if that needs to happen. Let your left hand come down to your leg. Again, reach up with that right arm and then reach over. So just like we did in seated a little while ago, that same side body stretch position, keeping your chest square to the front so we're not rolling that right shoulder down. We're keeping the right shoulder blade back. One more breath. And then come back to center. Keep that right arm lifted. Reach the left arm up and exhale to bend the elbows, finding cactus arms, goalpost arms, finding a tall spine. And as we exhale, we're going to rotate toward the left, finding a twist. Couple breaths here. And notice what you feel. Likely we're feeling some work in the shoulders, the back, the core. Might even be feeling a good bit of work in that right hip, the glute. And in some ways, we can think about our glutes being a part of our core. They really help stabilize in a lot of movements, particularly twists. So let's inhale, come back to center, reach up. Exhale, float the hands down, low lunge. And we're simply going to switch the legs here. So taking that left knee back, stepping the right foot forward. Again, setting up the foot and the knee so they're parallel with the hips. Train tracks is another cue that I often use for that. And then when you're ready, inhale, reach the arms up for Anjaneyasana. Couple breaths here. As you're reaching up, think about your shoulder blades sliding up along the back of the body. Let that energy that you're creating with the muscles of reaching, let that move down all the way into the shoulders, maybe even down to the ribs. All right, so we're going to keep that left arm lifted, right hand comes down to our leg, really reach up with that left arm, keep the shoulder back, and start to reach over for that side body stretch. Inhale back to center. Bring that right arm back up again. Exhale to bend the elbows, tall through the spine. Exhale, turn to your right, towards your knee, finding that twist. Again, just take a second to notice what you feel while you're in this twist. Inhale back to center, reach up one more time. Exhale, float the hands down to the mat, and we're simply going to step that left foot in, forward fold. Inhale, rise all the way up. Lift the heart, reach up. Palms together, exhale, hands to the heart. Deep breath here. Inhale, reach up again. Exhale, forward fold. Release down. Bend the knees, plant the hands. This time we're going to step back with our left foot. We're going to keep that left knee lifted and we're going to come upright into crescent lunge. If crescent lunge feels a little unstable, if you need more stability, find warrior one instead by dropping that left heel. You'll likely have to adjust your stance a little bit to do that and definitely have to turn the left toes out slightly, but you can choose that option if you like. So a couple breaths here. And we're going to do something a little different just to kind of work on our balance and our stability. So let's bring the hands down to the heart and we're going to step back onto our left foot. So maybe you hinge forward and load into that right foot a little bit, and we're going to push off of it to come to the back of our mat. So obviously that might need a little bit of practice. So if you want to practice it a couple more times, you can come back to your lunge and push back. See if you can find kind of a mountain pose at the back of your mat. All right, so from here, from this mountain pose position, I'm gonna turn to the side just to demo. It's a little easier to see, but you can stay facing the way you are. We're just gonna find another side body stretch. So we're gonna inhale, reach up, root into our feet, and as we exhale, we're gonna side bend toward the left to open up the right side body. If you want a little more balance work, really root down into that left foot and maybe lift that right knee up. Another option here would be to find that block under your right foot. And let's inhale back to center. Exhale, release down. Big breath here. Let's go ahead and get the other side. So we'll inhale, reach up. And then exhale, side bend toward the right. You can send that left hip out to the side a little bit. And again, you can stay just like this, or if you want a little balance work, you can root down into that right foot and lift your left knee up. Option to find a block under that left foot. Inhale back to center. Exhale, release down. Shake it out a little bit, take a breath. Okay, so we're gonna come from this mountain pose near the back of our mat. We're going to reverse what we did a moment ago. We're gonna lift that left foot, step forward into our lunge on the other side. So again, you can find crescent lunge, or you can find warrior one, whichever one you like. And we're gonna get in that balance work after a few breaths, just to kind of have things be somewhat symmetric in our practice. One more deep breath here in your lunge. As you breathe out, hands come down to the heart. And you can load into that left foot a little bit and then press off of it. See if you can land in that mountain pose near the back of your mat. Let's practice that a couple more times. So you can come back to your lunge and then you can kind of hop back into that mountain pose. You do that just once or twice more. Coming back to the lunge is just as hard, I think, to do it in one step. And you don't have to do that. You can kind of walk it into the lunge if you need to. All right, so let's end in the lunge this time. We'll inhale, reach up one more time. And then we'll exhale to float the hands down to the low lunge. And we'll step forward, forward fold. And just pause here for a moment. Feel free to find a little bit of movement for the low back, for the shoulders, for the neck. You can start to root down into your feet. Slowly as you inhale, start to come up. Lifting the heart, reaching up. Maybe finding a little back bend this time. Palms come together, hands come down to the heart as you breathe out. And we'll pause here for a couple breaths. With our next inhalation, let's reach the arms up again. And as we exhale, forward fold once more. From here, we're going to bend the knees, plant the hands, and step back onto your knees, coming back to that tabletop position. We're going to get a little bit more side body focus next. So we're going to move into kind of a kneeling version of side angle. So a few options here. One is to use the block again. You can put that under your left hand. If you don't want to use it, you can just keep that left hand on the mat. We're going to start in kind of a side plank position. So we're going to keep that left hand planted, again, on your block or your mat. And we're going to start to open up toward the right. So as we're doing this, we extend the right leg straight and lift that right arm up. You can kind of swivel that left foot behind you a little bit if you like. So just like if we were doing side angle standing from Warrior Two, we can keep that right arm reaching straight up, or we can start to bring that bicep closer to the ear, to the head. And really you can find whatever feels good for your neck, for the eye gaze. Some people like to have the eye gaze going up toward the ceiling. That's kind of the more traditional version of the pose. Some people like to just let the neck relax here and let the head hang down. Get a little stretch on the right side. Take 2 more breaths here. Really think about stretching, opening up on that right side. Reach out through your toes, reach out through your fingertips. And as we breathe out, we're just going to come back to table. So letting that right hand come down, knee comes in, back to center. Same thing other side. Right hand plants either on a block or straight on your mat. And keep that right knee planted and then start to open up toward the left side. Again, as you're doing this, you can kind of swivel that right foot behind you. Either reach straight up with the left arm or bring the arm overhead, and again, really create some stretch, some tension on the side body by reaching out through the foot and the hand in opposite directions. Take a few more breaths. As you exhale, you can start to come back to center, and we're going to flow into side plank. We couldn't do side body practice without side plank, right? So we can set that block aside, and let's come onto either the hand or the forearm here. You can do either one. I'm going to come onto the forearm today. So I'm planting that left elbow right underneath my shoulder, and I'm simply going to extend the feet back and open up to the side just like we did for the previous pose. So hips are square and level, so there's kind of a vertical plane going across the front of the pelvis. You can either keep this right arm down beside the body, or you can reach up again. Think about lifting that left side away from the floor, scooping the front body in toward the spine just a little bit. Take a couple breaths. The breath might get a little ragged here. That's fine. It's normal. All right, and let's exhale back to center. You can come back up to your tabletop if you like. Take a breath. And we'll find that side plank on the other side. And this time I'm going to do it on my hand just to demonstrate that, to show the different option. And of course, if you're on your hand, you also have the option for that right knee to plant under the hip. Wherever you are, think about that side body lifting up. And you can, of course, lift that left hand. You can also lift the left leg if you want to. And let's exhale, come back to center. Let's lower the knees to the mat and take the hips to the heels for child's pose. One more deep breath. Slowly inhale to come back up, hands and knees, and we're going to come over to seated. We're going to do one more side body stretch. We're going to find revolved head to knee pose. And I don't have a strap with me today, but if you have a strap and you want to use it for this pose, this is a really great one to use a strap with. So we're going to come to seated, right leg extended, left knee bent, left heel pulled in. If your left leg is kind of floating above the ground, if you feel like there's some tension in the hip that's preventing that knee from being supported by the ground, find a prop, find a block or folded up blanket, put that under your thigh so that it has something supporting it. All right, from here, if you're using that strap, loop it around your right foot. If not, just think about reaching out through the sole of your foot. Well, if you're using a strap, do that too. Start to open up away from your right leg. Take a line through both shoulders. Think about that line being parallel to your right leg. Tall through the spine. Inhale, left arm up. Reach up. Think about lifting the rib cage on both sides away from the hips. And then start to lengthen your body over your leg. Think about the top of your head reaching out and over. Again, keep that left shoulder back. Even if it means you're not going as low, that's fine. Maybe think about your left elbow reaching, pulling to get a little more stretch if that feels good. We'll take a few more breaths here. Let's take 3 more breaths. So as you exhale, after that third breath, you can really slowly start to come back up to center. And just pause here and seated for a second. Notice how it feels to release from that pose. And we can start to switch the legs to go to the other side. So right heel comes in close to the hips, left leg extends out. Again, you can bolster under that right thigh if you need to. Another way we can use props, if we're feeling like there's too much tension in this right leg, if the knee just won't straighten, then we can use our, in this case, a rolled up towel or blanket under the back of the knee can be really nice. So just kind of rolling that up and putting it right under the back of the knee joint, that can be really helpful. So again, think about extending out through that left heel, the sole of the foot, and that kind of helps initiate that rotation a little bit. Again, that straight line going through the shoulders parallel to the left leg. Inhale, reach up, lift the rib cage away from the pelvis. Keep that liftedness as you start to reach over and come into the pose. And I forgot to mention it, but of course you can use your strap here with your left hand. You can kind of pull with that left arm. That can help keep that length. That can be helpful, particularly if you're feeling tightness in the left side of the body. That can just help you keep that rib cage lifted away from the pelvis, and that can help you avoid that compression that can happen. So we'll take a few more breaths. Let's take 3 more breaths. After you finish that third breath, really slowly as you exhale, start to release and come back up to center. And again, just pause here for a second. Notice what you're feeling in your body as that pose releases. And from here, you can bring that left leg back in. We're gonna come straight over to recline. And we're gonna move into figure 4 stretch. So same way we started, knees bent, soles of the feet planted. We're gonna take that left ankle, cross it over our right knee. And then we're going to use the hands to help bring the legs up toward the body. So you might start by grabbing onto that left foot and shin. And then you might switch to the back of your right thigh, or maybe the front of the right shin. While you're here, it might feel good to move the feet and the ankles a little bit. So we should be getting a really nice stretch on that left hip, the left glute muscle in particular. And if we want to add more tension, we can think about that knee moving out away from the body. We might even bring our left hand onto the inside of that knee and really gently guide that hip open a little bit more. One more breath here. We're going to keep the legs crossed, release the hands, right foot finds the ground again, and then we're going to let our knees, our legs start to fall over toward the right to come into a twist. So as always, listen to your body. If this is feeling a little too intense on your hip or back, you might just slide that ankle off and have your knees kind of stacked. You can use props to support the legs. Notice your shoulders here. As best we can, we want to try to keep the shoulders, the chest square up toward the ceiling. If that left shoulder is lifting a little bit, then we'd want to try to adjust to find a little less tension. It might feel good to take your eye gaze toward the left and just taking it over that left shoulder. And with your next inhalation, slowly start to come back to center. You can slide that ankle off your knee and just bring the feet back to the middle, knees back up. Same thing other side, starting with that figure 4, left ankle crossing over the, right ankle crossing over the left knee, drawing the legs in with the arms, with the hands. Take a few breaths. Slowly as you exhale, you can start to release the hands. Let that left foot find the mat again. Maybe shifting the hips over to the right a little bit. I like to do that myself before I find that twist. And then letting the legs fall over toward the left. Again, feel free to use props here. Feel free to find variation with the legs. Slowly as you inhale, start to make your way back to center. Again, you can start by sliding the ankle off the knee and just bringing the knees back to center. From here, let's bring the knees up toward the chest. Find happy baby pose. Soles of the feet point toward the ceiling, knees come out to the sides, and we pull down with the hands. Hands might be on your big toe or the edges of your feet, or maybe on your shins. And find a little bit of movement here. As you exhale, draw the knees back in toward the body one more time. Use the arms to hug the legs in. If it feels good, you can lift your nose toward your knees as well. And as you exhale, release. And all the way down to your mat. And we've arrived at our final relaxation pose, Shavasana. So getting comfortable here. Again, if you want to use props like a pillow under your knees or a eye pillow or anything like that, you can find those props. Just taking a moment here to notice what you feel in the body, to tune into your breath. And taking these last few minutes of practice to just be still. I'm going to give just a few minutes in this recording for Shavasana. If you know that you want more than 3 or 4 minutes, then you can pause it here and take as much time as you need. over the next few breaths, you can start to bring your attention back to your mat, back to your room. You can take another couple deep breaths here. You can begin to bring some movement back to your body. And whenever you're ready, you can roll to one side. And from there, you can make your way back up to seated. All right. Thank you all so much for joining me today. Thank you for sharing your practice with me. I hope you have a wonderful day, and I look forward to seeing you again soon. Namaste.